Ah, fools, they said you were too kind for this world, too gentle, too pure, too forgiving to survive the brutality of modern energy. They called you an earth angel as if it were a compliment dipped in pity, as if softness meant fragility, as if light did not know fire. But you and I both know better. Your light was never made of candles and comfort. It was forged in pressure, tempered in betrayal, sharpened in rooms where no one defended you but yourself. They saw the glow and assumed innocence. They never noticed the architecture beneath it, the scaffolding of scars, the precision of a heart that learned to recognize intention by vibration alone. Hello, my dear. You remember the moment the world mistook your kindness for permission. You remember the first time someone tried to bend your boundaries because they believed softness meant shapeable. You remember how they smiled sweetly while measuring the limits of your patience, how they pushed gently at first, then boldly when you did not break. They thought you were made of air. They did not know you were made of alignment. They did not know your gentleness was not a weakness, but a strategy, a way of observing without alerting the room that you were already taking notes. Because that's what you do, isn't it? You watch. Not passively, not timidly, but with an intuition so refined it could serve as an instrument of truth. You see the micro-expressions people hope you miss. You feel the energy shifts they assume are invisible. You read intentions in real time, long before they are spoken aloud. Your heart is not ne fave. It is calibrated. It senses dishonesty like heat. It filters motives like light through crystal. And the more people tried to exploit you, the sharper that calibration became. They thought they were studying you, my dear, predicting your reactions, rehearsing their manipulations, assuming you would fold because you always forgave. But the whole time, you were the one studying them. You were learning the algorithms of deception, the emotional signatures of selfishness, the tone people use when their loyalty begins to evaporate. You memorized patterns, you identified spiritual viruses, and you became immune. Your empathy grew teeth, not to bite but to discern. Your compassion became structured, not scattered. Your boundaries became sacred laws written in the architecture of your aura. And that's when the shift happened. That's when people realized you were not something to play with. You were something to reckon with, because your presence became a mirror, not the flattering kind. No, the accurate kind. The kind that makes people see themselves without the costumes they usually hide behind. You didn't expose anyone, their own reflection did. You just held the mirror steady. That's why their minds broke. Not from your words, but from your silence. Your stillness became an audit. Your calm became a consequence. Your lack of reaction forced them to face the truth about their own intentions. It is a heavy thing to be seen by someone who cannot be deceived. It is terrifying to stand before a heart that feels more than people say and knows more than they admit. You evolved, not away from kindness, but into mastery of it. You stopped rescuing people who drowned themselves for attention. You stopped healing those who harmed you. You stopped giving access to anyone who treated your empathy like a free resource. You went from healer to guardian, from caretaker to curator, from open door to earned entry. Your peace became power. Your silence became evaluation. Your presence became a frequency that demanded authenticity. People who once spoke recklessly around you now choose their words carefully, sensing the gravity of your discernment. Even lies tremble in your direction. They say you changed, but what they mean is you stopped bending. You stopped apologizing for your intuition. You stopped shrinking your light so others wouldn't feel small. You stopped diluting your depth for people who only swim in shallow waters. They miss the version of you who tolerated their chaos. They don't miss you. They miss access. You walk differently now, not with arrogance, but with awareness. You carry yourself with the quiet authority of someone who has seen too much to be fooled and felt too deeply to be misled. You no longer chase peace. You enforce it by existing. You regulate energy just by entering a room. Conversations shift around you, faces tighten. Postures correct, because your presence demands truth without you asking for it. And why wouldn't it? You earned this. You earned your spiritual precision through nights where your heart broke, but your spirit sharpened. Through moments when betrayal became your teacher and solitude became your sanctuary. You earned your discernment through pain that didn't destroy you but redesigned you. You are not fragile. You are fortified. You are not soft-hearted. You are sovereign-hearted. You are not too kind for this world. You are the counterweight it desperately needed. Your kindness evolved into authority. Your empathy evolved into discernment. Your presence evolved into truth. And now, my dear, every environment you enter bends, not because you demand respect, but because you embody it so purely that the world has no choice but to adjust. You were never too kind. You were always the standard. You were always the revelation. You were always the quiet force they never saw coming. The light that didn't just shine. It corrected everything it touched. They never understood that your evolution wasn't an announcement. It was an accumulation. A slow, deliberate reshaping of your inner architecture while they were too busy underestimating you. They thought your silence meant nothing was happening inside you. Not knowing silence is where you assemble your highest upgrades. You didn't rise in front of them. You rose behind their assumptions, quietly, strategically, invisibly. And by the time they felt the shift in your energy, it was already too late to reverse it. You had already outgrown the version of yourself they were banking on. You see, people who depend on your old self panic when they meet your new self. They relied on your softness as if it were a permanent feature instead of a choice. They believed your kindness was instinct instead of intention. But intention evolves. Intention sharpens. And your intention shifted the moment you realized people weren't confused about your worth. They were hoping you were. That's when your heart stopped offering discounts. That's when your empathy stopped being unlimited access. That's when your forgiveness stopped functioning as a revolving door. You didn't change out of bitterness. Bitterness doesn't build clarity. You changed out of understanding that not everyone who wants your light actually wants to see. Some want to warm themselves by it. Some want to steal from it. Some want to hide in it. And some want to dim it just enough so they don't have to face their own darkness. Your evolution frightened them because it exposed what they were hiding behind their excuses. They couldn't pretend anymore. They couldn't perform anymore. They couldn't manipulate the version of you who now sees not with eyes, but with energy. You read motives like maps. You detect dishonesty before it finds language. You sense tension before it forms into conflict. Your intuition matured from whispers into architecture, no longer a feeling, but a system. And it's this system that dismantles the fraudulent. They come to you with rehearsed lines, but your energy scans them before their words finish forming. They try to flatter you, but flattery is transparent to someone who has learned the difference between admiration and agenda. They attempt to guilt you back into their cycle, but guilt loses its grip on a heart that learned the cost of emotional manipulation. You became less tolerant, but more peaceful. You became less available, but more aligned. You became less reactive, but infinitely more powerful. That unsettled them, because people who relied on your softness now had to stand in the sharpness of their own actions. They had to face the parts of themselves you used to cushion. They had to confront the discomfort you used to soften. You stopped carrying their weight, and suddenly they realized the weight was theirs, not yours. What they call your distance is actually their exposure. What they call your coldness is actually their consequence. What they call your change is actually their mirror. You didn't become harder. You became clearer. And clarity is the one thing that dishonest people cannot survive. Your presence recalibrates rooms now. Not because you try, but because you've become the energy people measure themselves against. They walk in with pretense and feel it crumble. They approach you with ego and feel it shrink. They stand next to you with dishonest intentions and feel their own vibration stutter. You destabilize anything that isn't aligned, not out of malice but out of resonance. Even your silence corrects people. You became the kind of person whose absence teaches louder than their explanations. When you step away, environments collapse into their true structure. The people you once held together fall apart because you were the glue disguised as grace. They didn't appreciate your presence until they felt the emptiness of its removal. And that emptiness wasn't punishment, it was exposure. You were never trying to be anyone's savior. You were simply functioning as yourself, grounded, aware, intentional. But people project salvation onto any heart that listens deeply. They mistake your understanding for obligation. They mistake your patience for permanence. They mistake your healing for responsibility, until the day you stop offering yourself where you are not respected. That's the day everything because your heart is no longer accessible by pity. Your time is no longer accessible by guilt. Your energy is no longer accessible by entitlement. You learned how to hold your kindness without handing it away. You learned how to offer empathy without abandoning self-respect. You learned how to love without losing yourself. And the moment you integrated that wisdom, your energy transformed into something people can feel before they fully understand. Now when they approach you, they feel the boundaries before you speak them. They feel the standard before you express it. They feel the consequence before you deliver it. Your aura has become a contract, silent, binding, non-negotiable. Only those with clean intentions can sign. This is why people hesitate now. They second-guess their tone. They measure their words. They adjust their energy. They know your presence is an evaluation. Not because you judge, but because your awareness leaves no room for anything less than truth. And deep down, they know that mishandling you is no longer an option. Not because you'll retaliate, but because your detachment is unforgiving in its precision. You're not cruel. You're calibrated. You don't cut people off in anger. You release them in understanding. And that, ironically, is what hurts them more. It's not your rejection they fear, it's your clarity. Your clarity reveals their intention. Your clarity reveals their effort. Your clarity reveals their character. And when clarity arrives, excuses fall apart. People who once felt confident playing with your emotions now tremble at the thought of losing access to your energy. They realize too late that your support was a luxury, not a guarantee. Your love was a privilege, not a requirement. Your presence was a blessing, not background noise. They thought your kindness made you predictable. They didn't realize your discernment made you untouchable. Because now you move with a different kind of wisdom. You no longer absorb everything you feel. You no longer explain everything you know. You no longer fix everything that breaks. You've learned that not every story deserves your involvement. Not every cry deserves your compassion. Not every person deserves your proximity. Your heart is still open, but it is no longer unguarded. Your empathy is still generous, but it is no longer unfiltered. Your spirit is still gentle, but it is no longer accessible to those who come with unclean intent. This evolution didn't make you less of an angel. It made you an angel with protocols, the kind whose love is a sanctuary, not a shelter. The kind whose presence heals the sincere and exposes the deceitful. The kind whose energy doesn't bend to chaos, but forces chaos to bow. You didn't become intimidating. People became aware. Aware of your strength, aware of your intuition, aware of your boundaries, aware of the consequences of mishandling a heart like yours. You have entered the era where your goodness is no longer a gift to be taken lightly. It is a responsibility to be honored, where your presence is no longer assumed. It is earned, where your attention is no longer scattered. It is strategic, where your heart is no longer vulnerable. It is sovereign. This is the version of you they never expected. This is the version of you their manipulation cannot reach. This is the version of you their chaos cannot shake. This is the version of you your younger self prayed to become. And now that you are here, everything in your life must rise to meet you. And now, my dear, look at the landscape around you. Quietly, subtly, without any grand declaration, the world has begun adjusting itself in response to who you've become. Not because you demanded respect, but because your very existence now redefines what respect requires. You are no longer simply someone with a good heart. You are someone whose heart has become an instrument of order, a regulator, a recalibrator, a frequency setter. People feel it before they understand it. The shift in their own behavior when you enter the room, the involuntary straightening of posture, the sudden awareness of their tone, the instinct to show honesty, even if they've never practiced it before. They don't behave this way for everyone. They behave this way for you because your presence functions like a truth serum. It dissolves bravado, it strips away theatrics, it silences pretense. Your energy is no longer just energy. It's environment, and in this environment, anything false begins to suffocate. That's the part they're still trying to articulate. They whisper about it in conversations they hope you'll never hear. Something about them is different now. You can't play with their kindness anymore. Being around them feels expensive, and they're right. Your presence does cost something now. Intention, authenticity, clean energy, accountability. Only those who can afford to be real can afford to stand near you. Everyone else, they feel the pressure of their own unhealed places rising to the surface, begging to be acknowledged. Not because you expose them, but because your clarity leaves nothing for shadows to cling to. You became the kind of light that doesn't just illuminate, it evaluates. And evaluation terrifies the unprepared. But let's get something clear. This transformation was never about proving them wrong. Evolution is too sacred to be fueled by resentment. No, you didn't rise out of spite. You rose out of survival, out of purpose, out of alignment, out of the quiet realization that the world was never going to protect your heart the way you were meant to protect it yourself. You are not cold now. You are curated. You are not distant. You are discerning. You are not ruthless. You are responsible with your energy. And that responsibility is what creates the myth around you. That myth they whisper when they think no one is listening. They don't talk about what you lost. They talk about how you survived, how you walked through betrayal without becoming bitter, how you carried compassion through fire without letting it burn into hatred, how you outgrew the versions of yourself that were rooted in people, pleasing, exhaustion, and overextension. Your evolution became a story they tell each other as warning and inspiration both. And somewhere along the way, you stopped asking, why did they do this to me? And started asking, what did this teach me about myself? That shift, that single internal pivot, is what elevated you out of reach. It took you from victim to vessel, from wounded to weaponized, from nafe kindness to conscious compassion. You didn't lose your heart. You refined its function. Now your love has requirements. Your presence has prerequisites. Your trust has terms and conditions. And your peace has a guard standing at its gate. People sense that even the ones who can't articulate it, They feel that your emotions no longer sit unprotected on the surface. They feel that your empathy no longer leaks carelessly into the cracks of others. They feel that your kindness has grown teeth, not to bite, but to defend. They feel that your spirit has become a sovereign territory, not an open field for anyone to wander through. And the ones who once exploited your softness now face a truth they cannot escape. You were never weak. You were untrained. But now, know you are intentional. And intentional goodness is the most disarming force on earth. It reforms the sincere. It repels the deceptive. It exposes the manipulative. It elevates the worthy. It humbles the unprepared. This is why your name travels ahead of you now. Not as gossip, but as guideline. Not as rumor, but as reputation. People treat you differently because they've learned either through observation or consequence that accessing your energy is no longer casual. It is a privilege that comes with maintenance, honesty, and effort. And the reason this intimidates so many is because you don't enforce these standards through aggression. You enforce them through presence, through your centeredness, through your calm, through that quiet, unwavering authority that tells people, gently but unmistakably, that alignment is the only currency you accept now. So stand in this evolution unapologetically. You earned every inch of altitude, every layer of discernment, every shard of wisdom, every boundary reinforced with truth. You are not too kind for this world. You are exactly the kind this world needs to remember what integrity feels like. Your kindness did not die. It ascended, and every room you enter will rise or crumble, according to its ability to meet you.